Welcome back to Word Wizards, the podcast where we unravel the mysteries of language and help you communicate with confidence and flair. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Chloe. Joining Alex today, we've got a fantastic topic lined up that I think resonates with so many of our listeners. Everyday English conversation and how to speak like a native. It's a phrase we hear a lot, but what does it really mean, Alex?
That's a brilliant question, Chloe, and it's essential to tackle it head on. When people say, speak like a native, a common misconception is that it means losing your accent entirely and sounding exactly like someone from, say, London or New York. But that's not really the goal, is it? And honestly, it's often an unrealistic one.
Exactly. I think it's more about achieving naturalness. It's about communicating effectively, understanding the nuances, the unspoken rules, the rhythm, and the common phrases that native speakers use without even thinking about them. It's about sounding authentic and fluent rather than perfectly accent-free.
I completely agree. It's about that smooth, effortless flow in conversation. You know, when you're not constantly translating in your head, when you can pick up on sarcasm, when you can use an idiom appropriately, or even when you just know how to gracefully end a conversation without it feeling awkward. Those are the hallmarks of truly natural, everyday English.
And that's where everyday English comes in, right? Because textbooks are fantastic for grammar, for vocabulary, for building that foundational structure. But real life? Real life is small talk at the coffee shop, complaining about the weather to a neighbor, making plans with friends, or even just expressing a spontaneous thought. These are rarely the scripted dialogues you find in a language learning book.
Absolutely. Think about it. How often do you discuss the present perfect continuous in casual conversation? Not often, but you might say, I've been waiting for ages, or she's been studying all morning. That's everyday English. It's practical, it's contextual, and it's often more informal.
So, for our listeners who are striving for this kind of natural fluency, where do they even begin? What are some concrete strategies they can start implementing today?
Well, Chloe, my number one tip, and I preach this often, is active listening. It's not enough to just hear English. You need to actively listen to how native speakers phrase things. Pay attention to podcasts like ours. Listen to TV shows, movies, even just snippets of conversations you overhear. How do they express surprise? How do they agree or disagree politely? Notice the rhythm, the intonation, the stress on certain words.
That's such a great point, Alex. And building on that, I'd suggest what's called shadowing. It's a technique where you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they're saying simultaneously, mimicking their pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation as closely as possible. It trains your mouth and ears to work together in a very natural way.
Shadowing is incredibly powerful. It's like a vocal warm-up for your English muscles. Another huge piece of the puzzle, and often a stumbling block for learners, are idioms and phrasal verbs. They are everywhere in everyday English. You can't avoid them. Think, hang out, chill out, break down, get by. They often make no literal sense, so learning them in context is key.
Definitely. Don't just memorize lists of idioms. Try to see them used in sentences, in a story, in a show. For example, instead of just knowing break a leg, understand it's something you say to wish someone good luck, typically before a performance. It's all about context. And speaking of context, let's talk about those little words, those fillers or discourse markers that often get a bad rap, but are actually crucial for sounding natural.
Ah, yes, the ums and uhs and you knows. They're not weaknesses, they're very human. In everyday conversation, they give you a moment to think, to transition between ideas, and they make your speech sound less robotic and more spontaneous. Things like, you know, I mean, like, so anyway, right? These are integral parts of native speech patterns.
Absolutely. Imagine someone speaking English perfectly grammatically, but without any of these natural pauses or connectors. It would sound incredibly stiff and unnatural, almost like a machine. So embrace them, but learn to use them subtly, just as native speakers do.
Another area where learners often struggle is small talk. Starting a conversation, keeping it going, and then gracefully ending it. It's an art. Learning common openers like, "How's your day going?" or "Crazy weather, huh?" can be incredibly useful. And knowing how to pivot from one topic to another, or how to signal you need to leave, well, I should probably get going now, but it was great chatting. That makes a huge difference.
That's so true, Alex. It's those social conventions that often trip people up more than grammar. And I think a huge part of being able to apply all these strategies comes down to mindset. We have to address the fear of making mistakes. So many learners are paralyzed by the idea of saying something wrong.
Oh, that's a massive hurdle. And here's the thing, native speakers make mistakes all the time. We mispronounce words, we stumble, we use grammar incorrectly in casual speech. The goal isn't perfection, it's communication. Focus on getting your message across clearly and naturally, and view mistakes as learning opportunities, not failures.
Exactly. Think of it as progress over perfection. Every time you try to speak, even if you make a small error, you're building fluency. And a crucial tip related to this is to try and avoid direct translation from your native language. Our brains are wired to do it, but it often leads to unnatural sounding English.
Yes, think in English is a common piece of advice, and it's hard to do, but powerful. Start with simple thoughts. Describe objects around you in English in your head. It trains your brain to process directly in the target language. Also, recognizing the difference between formal and informal English is vital. You wouldn't use the same language with your boss as you would with your best friend, and being able to switch registers smoothly is a sign of true fluency.
Absolutely. It's knowing when to use "how are you doing" versus "how do you do" or "what's up." And it really comes from that active listening we talked about earlier. Observing different social contexts and noting the language used within them.
So, to tie this all together for our listeners, what are some practical, everyday things they can do to put these tips into action?
I'd say, first, find opportunities to speak. This could be a language exchange partner online, a local conversation group, or even just talking to yourself in English. Describe your day aloud. Narrate your actions as you do chores. Second, immerse yourself. Even if you're not in an English-speaking country, watch English language media without subtitles. Listen to music, and really try to absorb the language.
Fantastic advice. And remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You won't sound native-like overnight, but consistent, intentional practice will get you there. Celebrate those small victories, like understanding a new idiom or having a smooth, unhesitant conversation.
Definitely. It's about building confidence and finding your authentic voice in English. It's not about erasing your identity, but enriching your communication toolkit. The goal is to connect with people, to express yourself naturally, and to enjoy the process.
Well said, Chloe. So to recap, our journey to speaking everyday English like a native isn't about ditching your accent, but about embracing natural flow, understanding context, and using those common phrases and rhythms that make conversation effortless. We talked about the power of active listening and shadowing, how crucial it is to learn idioms and phrasal verbs in context, and why those little filler words actually help you sound more natural.
And remember, we emphasized overcoming the fear of mistakes because they're part of the learning journey. It's also vital to distinguish between formal and informal English and to practice small talk to keep conversations flowing smoothly. Ultimately, it's about consistent immersion, trying to think in English, and finding genuine opportunities to speak.
It truly is about continuous practice and celebrating every step of the way. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of everyday English. We hope you feel inspired and equipped to make your conversations more natural and confident.
Thanks for listening, Word Wizards. Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep speaking naturally.